limits continuity, differentiability, and then mean value theorems. Mean value theorems, Taylor's theorem with reminders, Taylor's theorem with reminders, indeterminate forms, maxima and minima, maxima and minima, asymptotes, curve tracing, functions of 2 or 3 variables, limits continuity, partial derivatives, limits continuity, partial derivatives, maxima and minima, Lagrange's method of multipliers, Lagrange's method of multipliers, Jacobian, Riemann's definition of definite integrals, Riemann's method of definite integrals, indefinite integrals, infinite and improper integrals, indefinite integrals, infinite and improper integrals, infinite and improper integrals, double and triple integrals, double and triple integrals, area, surface and volume. So this is the entire syllabus of our calculus topic. Got it? So this is the 100% syllabus that we are going to cover it. So here the real numbers, so this is where the algebra starts. So algebra starts with the numbers, additions, subtractions, multiplications and divisions. And then little extension of algebra is nothing but the calculus. Now this part of the syllabus, so it's a mix of both algebra and calculus part together. So this is where actually, if you notice, let me list down. So from elementary standard till 5th class, whatever we study is simply the arithmetics, that is additions, subtractions, multiplications and divisions. And then from 6th to 10th class, whatever we study is simply a single topic called algebra, but we will study in multiple subparts, but entirely it will be a single topic of mathematics called algebra. Even not even the complete algebra, it's only hardly 5 to 10% of algebra. That's what we are going to study from 6th class to 10th class. And then the intermediate or +2 standard is the place where the mix of algebra or the conversion from algebra to calculus that is going to be happening. And then once we are done with +2, whatever we study in the graduation, it is completely calculus. So only the calculus is the topic which will rule almost every topic of mathematics. Now here the syllabus, whatever is listed here, the transition part, that is from algebra to calculus, what is the transition that is happening? That's where this syllabus is listed there. So that's why it started with real numbers. First we need to identify what is a real number, and then that real number, how it is related to a function. So that is functions of a real variable. And then once we define the function, now the different properties of the functions we will be studying. Those properties of any random function we can think of, that is the continuity, limits, continuity and differentiability. These are the three fundamental properties of any random function whatever we see. And these fundamental properties, whatever we are going to study, if it is satisfied, based on that certain theorems were built. And those theorems are the mean value theorems, which will form the basic of the calculus, right? So mean value theorems is the one where we will be starting with the calculus. Then the mean value theorem, little extension of, so this mean value theorem contains three different theorems. One is the Rolle's theorem, and another is the extension of the Rolle's theorem, that is the Lagrange's mean value theorem will be there. And little extension of Lagrange's mean value theorem, you are going to come with the Cauchy's mean value theorem. And then Lagrange's mean value theorem is the one which is more elaborate for our discussion purpose, but it derived from the Cauchy's, it derived from the Rolle's theorem. Rolle's theorem is the fundamental theorem of all the mean value theorems. And then the extension of that is Lagrange's mean value theorem, and the same Lagrange's mean value theorem is extended further. And that extension, whatever we see, that is nothing but the Taylor's expansion. And the Taylor's expansion is quite elaborate in nature in algebra. So the elaboration of this Taylor's theorem is such an extent that almost every part of mathematics it will get involved in it. So including the numerical methods where we are applying the computers to calculate certain things. And there also this Taylor's theorem is the one which will put everywhere there, right? So this Taylor's theorem, from the Taylor theorem, so we will be deriving something called Maclaurin's theorem. And Maclaurin's theorem is the one which will give you a beautiful technique for our mathematics. That is, if you give me any random function, I will convert it into a polynomial format. That is the technique that is given by the Maclaurin series, which will simplify all our mathematics. So especially even for the competitive examinations, or even for solving the real physical problem or any engineering problem, the basic technique whatever we are going to use is the Maclaurin series, which will simplify any complex function into a simple one or two terms, as long as if you are ready to compromise if you are ready to compromise an accuracy of 2% or 3%. So with a loss of 2% or 3% accuracy, I will be completely analyzing whatever may be the function you can give it to me, right? So that is the beauty of Maclaurin's theorem, so which was derived again from the Taylor's expansion. This Taylor's expansion is there in algebra, is there in calculus, and is there in complex analysis also, right? So that is the beauty of this Taylor's expansion, but it was derived from the mean value theorems. And then once we are done with the Taylor's expansion, so there are certain things with the reminders of the Taylor's expansion. So if you wanted to identify a random function is given, if you wanted to identify the limits or the upper and lower limits or the boundaries of that particular function, that can be done with the help of the reminders of Taylor's theorem, right? And then the indeterminate form is when we want to find out the limits or the approximate or the approached value of any random function, we will be identifying the limits. Now when we are calculating the limits, certain times we will be ending up with a standard formats like 0 by 0 or 0 by infinite or infinite by infinite. Such kind of indeterminate forms will be arrived while finding out the limits. And these limits you will be able to find out with the help of some techniques called L'Hospital rule. So that L'Hospital rule will give the way or the method to find out the limits of any indeterminate format. So that we are going to study as part of this. Till this extent, this is one section. And then here, once you are done with the indeterminate form, this is part of the limits, right? So when we start with the calculus, we start with the limits. Then we go to the differentiation. And then we go to the integration. And then we go to the differential equations. This is the order we follow in case of calculus. Then when we are finding out the limits, there are certain special cases which we will not be able to find out with the standard methods. And those cases are nothing but the indeterminate formats. So we will be starting afresh here again, that is indeterminate forms, as if like is the start of the calculus. And then maxima and minima. So here there are certain parts which were skipped here. Those are the differentiation. That was not part of our syllabus. But the assumption is that we are already aware of the differentiation. So if you know the differentiation, one of the greatest application of the differentiation is nothing but this maxima and minima finding out. So this is one technique. Here the maxima minima was listed here. The same thing even listed here as well. Maxima and minima. So it was listed again. What it means for us is, so here suppose if a function y is equal to f of x, then to find out the maxima and minima, this is very simple with the help of normal differentiation. But suppose if it is a straightforward function, as if like a two variable, so one independent variable, one dependent variable function. That means a curve that was drawn on a plane. If that is the case, finding out the maxima and minima is very, very easier and straightforward. But what if the curve is a surface rather than a curve? If it is a surface, then finding out the maxima and minimum is a little bit tougher than this. So there are multiple cases that we are going to be analyzing in case of finding out the maxima and minima for complex functions. Suppose if z is equal to f of x comma y, then for this if you want to find out the maxima and minima with the help of simple calculus or the differentiation is not straightforward. There are certain things you need to be taking care. So those certain things we will be elaborately discussing in case of maxima and minima of multiple variables. Got it? And then once we are done with the maxima and minima, so this is completely an independent topic. This is curve tracing and asymptotes is nothing but given a random function, how to draw the curve. So this is the basic technique. So what are the basic techniques that are involved and what are the key points that should be noted in drawing any random graph? So those are the techniques which we are going to learn as part of this asymptotes and curve tracing. So a random curve is given, how we are going to trace it and what are the important points that you need to be noting in case of curve tracing. And one such kind of important point is identifying the asymptotes of any random curve. So we have to be understanding the curve tracing in this topic. This is again an independent topic. And then functions of two or three variables, again the same thing. So when we are dealing with a single variable function, that is y is equal to f of x, that is straightforward to find out the continuity and differentiability. But in case of multivariable function, finding out the limits, so there are different cases that you need to be taking care. It's not as simple as single variable. So here multiple variables are involved. Now when multiple variables are changing, then how the function value is going to be approaching a certain value. So that needs to be analyzed in case of the multivariable functions, limits and continuity, right? So the fundamental concept is same and the purpose is same and the method is same, but the way the variables are involved are different. So those things we have to be taking care in case of identifying the limits and the continuity for multivariables. This is one important aspect from UPSC point of view where the questions were framed from these areas. Got it? So this is one place not many times this part was asked because this was very simple and straightforward and easier. So asymptotes and curve tracing is given very, very lesser importance as per the UPSC. But the most important part is, that is, one is the maxima and minima and another is the application of Lagrange, so applications of mean value theorems, especially the Taylor's expansion with reminders is the place where the questions are asked to be given, right? And then, so maxima and minima and limits and continuity of multivariables. These are the places, most of the things actually you can expect the questions. And then Lagrange's method of multipliers, again one method that is used to find out the maxima and minima. So Lagrange's method of multipliers is nothing but a different method to find out the same purpose. So that is finding out the maxima and minima. So and then Raymond's definition of definite integrals. This topic is not part of our calculus. This is part of real analysis, right? So Raymond's definition of definite integrals. As I explained in the foundation classes, I told you that differentiation, as long as if the function is differentiable, you will be able to find out the differentiation. But given a random function, you are not very sure whether the integral exists for that or not, because integral is by definition is the inverse of the differentiation. That means if you randomly take one particular function, then for that the integral may or may not exist. But given the function, if it is continuous and differentiable, you will be able to find out the differentiation, but not an integration. Got it? So that's why if it is not differentiable, so sorry, if you are not able to find out the integration, then you have to identify whether it is integrable or not. So such kind of definitions will be taken care by these aspects. That is Raymond's definition of definite integral, what it says. And then indefinite is anyway normal straightforward integration that we will be doing. So these things you will be doing at +2 standard itself. That is indefinite integrals. But infinite and improper integrals, so these are the integrals which we are not, so which you have not studied at +2 standard. These things again will be part of our real analysis topic. Got it? So Raymond's definition of definite integrals and infinite and improper integrals will be dealt as part of the real analysis, and rest of the topics I will be taking it here itself. And this is double integrals and triple integrals and applications of double integrals and triple integrals to find out areas or the surfaces and the volumes of any given random shape. So those are the simple applications of these multiple integrals, which we will be dealing elaborately here itself. Got it? So to summarize out of this entire topic, so real number system, nothing is asked here, and functions of a real variable, nothing is asked here, but these fundamentals you have to be known already to find out limits, continuity and differentiability. And these are the things actually the questions were asked to frame. So here actually you can expect the questions, but these parts are the foundation to build the knowledge on this, but no questions will be asked in that. And then the mean value theorems, with this foundation, the mean value theorems you will be understanding it. Got it? And then there are possibility that the mean value theorems will be asked, especially Taylor's expansion is the one place where the application of mean value theorem is nothing but the Taylor's expansion, where you can expect the questions even here also. Especially from mean value theorems, if you can think of, this is rather than Rolle's theorem, you might expect on Lagrange's mean value theorem. Lagrange's mean value theorem is a place of asking the questions there. And Taylor's theorem, so there is a possibility of asking the questions, Taylor's theorem with reminders. And then indeterminate forms, so little chances of asking the indeterminate forms also, because that is easier and straightforward. And then maxima and minima, you can expect questions, maxima and minima. And asymptotes and curve tracing, little chances of asking asymptotes and curve tracing, because that is easier to draw. And then functions of 2 or 3 variables is the one which will be complex out of the entire syllabus in it, and there is very high possibility that you can expect questions, the functions of 2 or 3 variables, finding out the limits and continuity. And the partial derivatives is anyway straightforward, so very little possibility of asking the questions here. Why? Because these partial derivatives are must to understand vector calculus. So since the vector calculus questions will be given on a tougher level, so you need to be already knowing the partial derivatives. So he may not test here, he will be testing at vector calculus. Got it? But you need to understand what is a partial derivative here itself. And then maxima and minima for multiple variables, this is the one you can expect the questions here, right? But maxima and minima with a single variable function, very little chances of asking the questions. So for multiple variables only you can expect. And out of that, Lagrange's method of multipliers is one technique which will be used to find out the maxima and minima. Again, there is a possibility of asking the questions there also. That means, and then Raymond's definition of definite integrals, and then improper integrals and infinite integrals are anyway covered as part of real analysis. You can ignore it here, and rest of the things are simple applications of the integrals. That is also straightforward and easy to find out the evolution. So we have given only the evolution techniques to find out the triple and double integrals, right? And the applications are to find out only the areas and volumes. So this is volumes is straightforward, but while finding out the surface areas, you need to be having a little bit of understanding of the concept, how we are finding out the surface areas given a function. So these things actually little chances of asking the questions there, because that is very easier to find out. Got it? So this is the complete syllabus of UPSC calculus part of it. Do you have any questions on this? Got it? Are you comfortable with this syllabus? Or at least you might have studied at +2 standard some of the things in this. In graduation, you might have studied most of the parts of it. Right? So this is nothing complex here. This is very easy and fundamental topic. And then this forms the basis for most of the topics of UPSC syllabus. So that you have to be very clear on it. So that's why try to spend more time on this topic and then try to get each and every aspect. So then actually entire topics will go for it. It's very easy. Got it? Okay. Any questions? You can ask me now on this. Any questions? Okay, great. Then actually we'll start with the real numbers. I'll just introduce the topic for today. So here, so in our number system, right? So in total, how many number systems we have? So to classify broadly, we have only two number systems. One is the real number system and the second one is the complex number system. So this is exactly the reason why we have a topic called real analysis here and complex analysis here. So we have two topics too, right? So in the real analysis, so we'll be dealing with certain things, and the complex analysis we'll be dealing with certain things. Here, the real number system is again divided into multiple parts. One is the natural number system, whole number system, integer number system. But complex number system is a single number system. There are no subtopics in it. Got it? Here, if you notice, these natural number systems are nothing but 1, 2, 3, 4 and up to infinite. These are the natural numbers. So without including 0 here. So initially, the numbers were invented without 0. That's why this forms the basic number system. That's why when we start counting, we start with 1, not with 0. So that's the reason we call this as natural number system, because these were naturally developed out of the necessity. And then the whole number system was got introduced once we invent the 0, and then 0, 1, 2, 3 up to infinite. So this is the whole number system. It is natural number system plus 0 will form the whole number system. And then the integer number system, it will be from minus infinite to 0 and then from there to infinite. This entirely it will form the integer number system, but the numbers are integers only, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 up to infinite, and similarly minus 1, minus 2, minus 3 and up to minus infinite. All these numbers will form as the integer number system. Now, and there is one more number system, that is the rational number system. In the rational number system, if is of the P by Q format. Here if you notice, whatever the numbers we have discussed till this point, all are only the integer values, but nowhere it was mentioned like 1.2 or 1.5 like that. Actually these numbers were not mentioned, and these numbers 1.2 can be written as 12 by 10 or 6 by 5. Now this format of expressing the number we call as the rational number system, right? Now to summarize all these number systems, whatever we can think of, these are just the numbers whatever we are dealing with, and those numbers are from minus infinite to plus infinite, including all integers and the fractions together. Everything will form as a real number system called R. So this is represented with a letter called R, and then this natural number system is represented with N, and this whole number system is represented with Z, and then integer number system is represented, whole number system with W and integer number system with Z. Got it? So these are the numbers actually that we are going to use it, and the rational number system is represented with a letter called Q, right? So all these things will form from a base root of real number system. So if we do the real analysis, it is as if like dealing with all the numbers. So this is about the real numbers. Got it? And then counter to that, we have the complex number system, wherein the number is not simply as if like it is a single number, but there the number itself is complex. That's why we got the complex number system. Now here, when we are dealing with the real numbers, so usually we talk about real line. Why we see as real line is, this is only one variable is involved. Only one variable is involved. That means what here it is. So when we talk about y is equal to f of x, here we will be talking about this x, and this x actually it is treated as one dimension. That's why we call this as real number system. Real number system we call here, we represent usually with real line. So what this real line says is, we will be finding out only the value of x alone. So that is domain and range, right? So this domain actually is formed by this x, right? So the range of possible values of x which will satisfy without having any conditions for a random function we call as domain. That domain is nothing but the range of a single variable called x. That's why you will be able to represent that single variable with one dimensional geometry. So that's why we usually represent on a real line. So when we are wanted to represent the domain of a random function, so you will be listing out from point A to point B, all the values are getting satisfied by the equation without having any conditions. That's why we call as domain. So this is represented for only one variable called x. You are not dealing with any variable of y. Got it or not? Understood? So that's exactly the reason why we call real line. We don't call as a real plane. So real line. But when we are dealing with complex numbers, we always talk about complex plane. This is the basic difference. Real line and complex plane. So here, so these are the fundamental differences between these two fundamental number systems, real line and complex plane. So here we will be dealing with only one variable called x. Here we will be dealing with both x and y together. So two variables together we will be dealing. So that's why this is always represented on a plane. This is always represented on a line. Got it? So every line is treated independently. You just note it down. So I'm going to analyze the complex analysis. Then see this, in a complex number system, right? So usually we represent in a complex plane. Why we represent in a complex plane is, so a complex number. So usually number can't be complex, right? So it has to be a single number, either maybe 1, 2 or 1.5, any random number like that. But here it's a complex number, which means two numbers together will form a single complex number. Will form a single complex number with an ordered pair. Called a complex number. Here, when we talk about the domain of a real function, we always talk about from this value to this value is the domain. Here, this value to this value is always for only one variable called x. That's why this is 1D geometry. But in case of complex, right? So here, in a complex plane, so a complex number always comes in pair. So this is what we call as an ordered pair. Ordered pair, we mean you cannot interchange the order of the numbers. So that is, suppose if I wanted to represent this particular point on the complex plane. So this is as if like it is the straightforward Cartesian coordinate system. But we call this as a complex name in complex plane in case of complex analysis. The reason being, we will be using a letter called I in case of complex numbers. Here, this is an ordered pair. This you can even represent as A comma B, but still it conveys the meaning of A plus IB. Now, what is A and what is B in this? Right? So, A is nothing but the value that you have to travel along the x-axis for a distance of A, and then you need to travel along Y. So, here you need to differentiate the direction of the A and B. So, that's why that responsibility is taken care by this I. So, I is nothing but a directional component. I is a directional component. Now, this A plus IB means both are two different directions. A is one direction and B is another direction, but B is such a way that in an anti-clockwise direction, take for 90 degrees and then travel for a distance of B, then you will be reaching the point. That means in the anti-clockwise direction, you will be taking a direction of 90 degrees. So, this is what is the responsibility taken care by this I. That means we usually say I square is equal to minus 1. I square is equal to minus 1. How it is coming is, from the definition of I, if you multiply any random number, any random or any real number or any random number by I will rotate in complex plane about 90 degrees in the anti-clockwise direction. In the anti-clockwise direction. So, this is what is the definition of I. For example, suppose in a complex plane, let us say I call this number as, or the length of this part is A till this point. Then, if I multiply that number with a I, then this will be rotated. Same I is rotated in anti-clockwise direction for 90 degrees. And now this is AI. AI. Now again, if you multiply this with one more I, then this will be rotated in anti-clockwise direction again for 90 degrees. Now here, this is I square into A. So I square into A. So if you look at the diagram on the real line, this is plus I, and obviously this will be minus I. So minus A. So minus A is equal to I square into A, which essentially means that I square is equal to minus 1. So it implies I is equal to square root of minus 1. This is how you got the definition of I is equal to square root of minus 1, right? And then if you again multiply with one more I, then it will come as I cube into A. So I cube into A, out of I cube, I square is minus 1, you already aware. Then this will be minus AI. So it is exactly conveying the same meaning. To the top, if it is plus AI, to the bottom, obviously it will be minus AI. Again, if you multiply with one more I, then it will come as A into I power 4. I power 4 is nothing but 1. Then again you are coming back to the original start with what we call as A. So this is the meaning of I. Now, what it essentially means for us is, in a complex number system, there are two components. So two components you need to represent as if it is a single number, and this single number is having the convention of 1 in one direction, and the another number is in an anti-clockwise direction for 90 degrees and having that number as B. These two together will form a single complex number. So that's why as these two are coming together, we call as complex. So that's why this is a complex number system. This is very much useful for the complex analysis. Again, those complex analysis is very much useful for many of the engineering problems to solve. So that's the reason we will be separately studying this complex analysis, right? Got it or not? So to summarize, in a real analysis, we will be dealing with only one variable called x. Or if there are two variables, suppose if I have a coordinate system, z is equal to f of x comma y. Here, this is not a complex number system anymore. So this is a real valued function, and this is also a real valued function, and this is also real. Now all the three reals, but in three different directions. So this you can separately handle it. So again, that's what we call as real number system only. So real analysis only we will be doing it, but real of order 3. Got it or not? But here, complex number system, you cannot separate the real part and imaginary part. These two together you need to take care as and when you want. Got it? That means if you want to find out the function of f of z, here z is x plus iy, and whatever the result you are going to get is also in the form of u plus iv. So you cannot separate it, but here each part is separated separately. So that's why we call this as real analysis. We call this as complex analysis. Got it? So out of all these things, we will be starting with the real system. So real number system. So in the real number system, let us take a simple function of y is equal to f of x. So y is equal to f of x is a real valued function because x is a real number. Got it or not? So here actually one new term called function is coming into picture. Now we have to understand what is this function. Got it? So you note down this, then actually we'll start with the function, real valued function. So a function is a relation between two different sets, right? Right? So here, suppose, think of two different families, right? So suppose this is one family and this is one family. Now, out of these families, so let us say we have person A, B, C, D, and then again P, Q, R and S. Let us say there is a marriage proposal between these two families. Then suppose this girl is getting married with this guy, then obviously she is having relation with all the family members there. Correct or not? Again, the same person is having the relation between all the family members there. And then even the other persons in the family also, they will be somehow related to the other persons again, right? So this entire set we call as a relation. So this relation is in between two different families. Now one particular person, right, is getting married to another person. Now here that is expressed as y is equal to f of x. Let us say she got married to this person. So his behavior is dependent on this lady, right? So that's why these two are getting married, and this is what the kind of relation they have in between we call as a function. So here actually one person is dependent on the other, or one person's behavior is dependent on the other person's behavior. So this behavior is named as a function. So this is the name of the function. Got it? Here it is f. For example, suppose if you take one more person there, let us say P is dependent in some manner like this. So there is one kind of relation that is there. Depending upon that relation, the behavior of these two persons are dependent. So if this guy is changing, obviously this person is going to change depending upon the relation whatever he is having it. And this specific relation we call as function. The specific relation between two variables is called as function. Got it? So usually that will be given a name. That name usually we use f or g or h or p or any random name you can think of, right? So y is equal to f of x is a function. Now to summarize, if you are able to express y equal to, that will be a function. Got it or not? If you are able to express y equal to something, then that is a function. Got it? Now when there is a function, that means there is a dependency between these two. Whatever may be the kind of variables it is, obviously there will be a dependency. That's exactly the reason why we have something called a function f there, right? So if there is a dependency between them, then what kind of dependency it is there, that you can put it either in the analytic format or the equation format, or it may be on the graphical format. So that's where we need to be analyzing with the help of coordinate systems. Those coordinate systems are multiple. Again, Cartesian coordinate system, polar coordinate system, and cylindrical coordinate system, spherical coordinate systems. Everything I have explained clearly in the foundation classes. Now assume here actually there is a dependency. That dependency we are representing in a graphical format with the help of Cartesian coordinate system. So here this is x and this is y. Here y is dependent on x. So here this is what we call as the independent variable. And this is the dependent variable because this person's behavior is dependent on the x behavior. So that's why this is dependent variable. And these two are related with a random relation like this. So if one person is changing, that is on the x direction, if you put the values for the x, correspondingly depending upon the relation between them, it will be assuming different values for different responses of x. Got it? And this dependency is put on the graphical format. This is the graphical format. That means if there is a function y is equal to f of x, so the same relation, if you want to easily catch it, you will put it on the graphical format. Got it? So this is the graph of any real valued function y is equal to f of x. So this f is the responsible part to assume a random shape for this particular function. Suppose if it is a different function, y is equal to g of x, maybe having a different kind of relation like this. So this is a different function. That's why the shape of this curve is again dependent on this g. Got it or not? So this is how you will be representing a real valued function on a graph sheet like this. Now, if there is a function, obviously the continuation of that function is you have to identify whether this behavior is continuously changing in one manner or actually it is randomly doing. So suppose if the function is till this point it is showing certain behavior, suddenly if the behavior is dropped like this, then there is no continuity between them. Got it or not? The same person's behavior, but at one point it is erroneously behaving. Now such kind of test actually you need to be doing. So such kind of test, when we are doing it, we will have to find out whether the function is continuous or not. Got it or not? Exactly in the similar manner. So one on the other it is going to be built. Suppose if the function is continuous, then actually you will be checking if the function is differentiable or not. What is meant by differentiability? Here, whatever the functions we are talking about, depending upon the x value, you will be identifying the y value. But you are not concerned about how effectively the change is happening for a small change in the value of x. What it essentially means for us. Now here, whatever the graph I have drawn for x is equal to 1, x is equal to 2, x is equal to 3, x is equal to 4, like that, I will be identifying the value of the independent variable, and correspondingly I will be calculating the value of y and then putting on the graph and trying to trace the graph. But I am not concerned about for a small change or any change in the value of x, how it is effectively changing the value of y. This changes actually I didn't consider in it. That's exactly the difference between the continuity and differentiability. Continuity talks about the behavior of the function itself, but the differentiability talks about the behavior of the changes of the function. Got it or not? This is exactly the basic difference between the continuity and differentiability. Now these things actually how we are doing analytically, so that we are going to deal in the next class. Got it? So do you have any questions on this? Avinash? Yeah. So let me repeat. Yeah. See this. Y is equal to f of x. It talks about for each value of x, what is the value of y? This is the functional dependency between x and y, right? So the continuity, it talks about the relation between these two. How this particular function is continuous. Continuous we mean for different values of x, what are the values of y? So this is what is dealt by the continuity of the function. But the differentiability is nothing but if there is a change in the value of x, then how the functional change is happening in the value of y. That means function is concerned about only the continuity, but that is the continuity. And the differentiability, it talks about the behavior of the changes of the function, not the function. Got it or not? The function or the continuity is just talking about the relation between x and y, but the differentiability is as per their relation. If there is a change in the value of x, how the value is changing, that's what is going to be tested by the differentiability. Clear now? Avinash? Yeah, got it? So if you have any questions, you can ask me now. Okay, great. So if no other questions are there, I'm going to stop the class for today, and tomorrow I'm going to start with the continuity and differentiability. Okay, yeah. So thank you and good night.